Hello everyone. Imagine you are holding a simple, everyday object, a shiny red apple. You say the word apple, and you instantly assume that the sound leaving your lips perfectly and magically captures the physical reality of the fruit resting in your palm. This presentation maps the radical French critique of language and semiotics, bringing together the colliding insights of thinkers like Ferdinand de Saussure, Jacques Derrida, Roland Barthes, and Jean Baudrillard. It tracks the journey from the classical belief that words reflect reality, through Derrida's deconstruction of fixed meanings to Baudrillard's dystopian vision of a consumer society where science have murdered reality entirely. Since antiquity, Western philosophy has operated on a fundamental assumption: the word perfectly corresponds to the thing. Language was viewed merely as a mirror, reflecting a pre-existing profound reality. This is the classical myth of representation, deeply rooted in the concept of logocentrism. Logocentrism is the ancient assumption that language is a transparent vehicle for absolute truth. It places logos, reason, or the word at the absolute center of human existence. For centuries, we have comforted ourselves with the illusion of transparency. We firmly believe that language does not alter reality, but simply delivers it intact. We assumed a seamless subject object unity, trusting that the speaker accurately captures the absolute truth of the physical world without distortion. But what if this transparent glass is actually a prism? What if the words we use do not reflect reality, but actively construct, distort, or even erase it? The assumption of a perfect mirror has dictated our legal systems, our sciences, and our personal identities. Yet, this comforting stability is exactly what the radical French semioticians set out to destroy, revealing that the solid ground of language is built over a bottomless void. The classical mirror shatters completely with Ferdinand de Saussure. Saussure dismantled the comforting idea that words magically correspond to physical objects in the real world. He initiated what we can call the death of the referent. Instead of a direct link between a spoken word and a tangible item, Saussure redefined the linguistic sign as a two-sided psychological entity. He split the sign into the signifier, which is the acoustic sound or visual mark, and the signified, which is the mental concept it evokes. Notice the radical shift here. Both sides of this coin are entirely detached from the physical world. The actual physical apple is suddenly irrelevant to the mechanism of language. We are left trapped inside a purely mental and structural architecture. Meaning is no longer anchored to the soil of reality. Rather, meaning is generated purely by differences within a closed system. A sign has no inherent positive value. The word apple only means apple because it mechanically differs from maple or ample or orange. A sign only means something because it is strictly not something else. This structuralist linguistics paradigm marks the first fatal blow in our journey away from classical truth. If meaning relies solely on negative difference within a sealed network of signs, the external world is effectively locked out of our communication. Language becomes a self contained web. We begin to see how the belief that words reflect reality is unraveling. Saussure proves that we are operating a vast, arbitrary machine of distinctions. We do not speak language to describe the world. Language operates through us as an autonomous system of differences, completely indifferent to the physical reality we thought we were mastering. Building on this structuralist foundation, Jacques Derrida launches a devastating critique against the deepest habits of Western thought. He issues a declaration of war on phonocentrism. To grasp Derrida's maneuver, we must unpack a persistent metaphysical bias that has haunted philosophy since Plato: the absolute privileging of spoken presence. Historically, Western culture has elevated speech as the purest, most immediate form of truth. When you speak, you are physically present. Your breath, your voice, your living intention seem to guarantee the authenticity of your message. This is the metaphysics of presence. Under this regime, writing is aggressively demoted. Writing is viewed as a deficient, artificial, and dead supplement. It operates in your absence, open to misinterpretation, severed from the living origin. Derrida exposes this Phonocentrism as a fatal flaw designed to protect theological and metaphysical authority. Why prioritize speech? Because speech supports the illusion of a centralized divine truth, a transcendental guarantor of meaning. By marginalizing writing, classical thinkers desperately try to suppress the chaotic, uncontrollable nature of language. Writing proves that meaning can wander, mutate, and survive long after the original author is gone. Derrida seizes upon this artificial hierarchy. If the foundation of classical truth requires suppressing the written word, then the entire edifice of Western logic is desperately fragile. This connects directly to our core journey. The myth of a stable reality is sustained by silencing the unruly mechanics of language. Derrida realizes that the anxiety over writing is actually a terror of losing control over reality itself. He targets phonocentrism not merely as a linguistic quirk, but as the ultimate defense mechanism of an intellectual tradition terrified of the void beneath its own vocabulary. The assault on classical truth reaches its peak with deconstruction and difference. Derrida orchestrates the fall of the transcendental signified. In the structuralist paradigm, we established that meaning is generated purely within a closed system of differences, completely divorced from external reality. A sign means something solely because it is not another sign. Derrida takes this logic to its absolute extreme. If meaning relies strictly on its distinction from other signs, then meaning is never fully present. It is always pointing to another sign, which points to another, endlessly. Meaning infinitely slides along a chain of signifiers. To capture this impossibility of fixed meaning, Derrida coined the neologism difference. This brilliant term combines two actions: to differ, meaning to be distinct from other signs, and to defer, meaning to postpone, meaning indefinitely. Because every word requires other words to define it, ultimate truth is perpetually delayed. It never arrives. There is no absolute center or ultimate truth grounding human thought. We have dismantled the Enlightenment myth of reason as a stable anchor. Concepts like origin, nature, truth, and God, which historically served as ultimate, unquestionable anchors to stop the sliding of language, are exposed as temporary illusions. We are forever trapped in an endless sliding chain of words. This is a crucial turning point in our map of French critique. We have decisively moved from the classical belief that words reflect reality to Derrida's deconstruction of fixed meanings. Reality has been dissolved into a textual labyrinth. There is no outside the text. Every attempt to pinpoint a stable, objective reality merely produces another text, another interpretation, another layer of signifiers constantly shifting beneath our feet. This destabilization of meaning triggers a radical emancipation in how we approach literature, led by Roland Barthes. We transition from the rigid confines of the closed text to the infinite possibilities of the open text. Previously, the baseline assumption treated a text as a static object containing a single, fixed, divinely ordained meaning dictated entirely by its creator. Authority rested solely with the author. The author was viewed as a godlike figure who injected a specific truth into the pages. Roland Barthes shatters this theological model by famously declaring the death of the author. This is a monumental paradigm shift. The text is liberated from the author's original intention, opening up to an infinite play of signs. Barthes introduces the concept of intertextuality. Every text is exposed as a tissue of past citations. It is a multi-dimensional space of intersecting quotes, echoes, and cultural references. The creator does not invent entirely new meaning out of thin air. They merely mix and reassemble pre-existing codes. With the author removed from the throne of ultimate authority, absolute control shifts to the reader. This enlightened outcome transforms reading from a passive consumption of hidden truth into a highly active, creative process. Meaning is dynamically reconstructed by the active reader. This perfectly aligns with our overarching journey from a fixed reality to a fluid landscape of science. We have killed the singular truth of the author, replacing it with the joy of reading. The text becomes a playground of multiplicity. Reality is no longer a rigid structure handed down from above. but a flexible interactive network of codes that we continuously reweave every time we engage with it. Roland Barthes does not restrict this semiotic revolution to high literature. He brings it crashing down into the streets with his analysis of the mythologies of everyday life. He applies semiotics to pop culture, exposing how bourgeois society naturalizes artificial ideological constructs. We must analyze how this mechanism of deception operates in plain sight. Let us look at a basic first order sign, such as a glass of wine. At the primary tier, the physical liquid is a signifier, and the concept of an alcoholic beverage is signified. Together, they form a simple sign based on physical utility. However, Barthes reveals a secondary level of meaning, a process of mythological implantation. Society hijacks this first order sign and turns it into an entirely new signifier. The glass of wine is stripped of its simple physical utility and injected with a vast abstract concept, French national identity. This is a precise function of modern myth. It operates by masking artificial bourgeois ideology as an undeniable law of nature. It takes historical, culturally specific values and presents them as eternal, universal facts. Wine is no longer just fermented grape juice, it is the essence of being French. By decoding these everyday signs from wrestling matches to laundry detergents, Barth demonstrates that reality is constantly being manufactured and manipulated. The physical world is hijacked by ideological codes. We are moving deeper into a landscape where the original physical reality of an object is completely overshadowed by the cultural mythology it has been forced to carry. The authentic physical world is slowly being suffocated by the heavy, invisible architecture of cultural semiotics. This manipulation of everyday objects paves the way for Jean Baudrillard's devastating analysis of late capitalism. We witness a fundamental shift in the very nature of economics, the transition from use value to sign value. In the classical era of objects, consumption was strictly based on practical function and material need. Classical Marxist economics applied perfectly here. Material utility was the driving force. You bought a tool for what it practically accomplished. Today, that era is entirely dead. Late capitalism has moved decisively from producing material goods to producing abstract signs, completely redefining consumption as a mode of sign reproduction. We have entered the era of signs, dominated by sign value and social hierarchy. Consider the obsolescence of use value. You no longer buy a luxury vehicle simply for transportation. You consume it for social differentiation and status. The physical utility of the machine is secondary, almost irrelevant. Capitalism has evolved into a vast engine of sign reproduction, prioritizing the artificial over the real. Objects are completely emptied of their functional reality. They are merely nodes in a network of abstract codes. This marks a critical acceleration in our trajectory toward the murder of reality. We no longer interact with the physical substance of the world. We consume the prestige, the image, and the social code attached to the object. The material reality of the item has been entirely eclipsed by the semiotic value it broadcasts. The object itself disappears into the background, leaving us trapped in a relentless, exhausting competition of floating signs that dictate our social identities. To understand exactly how this total murder of reality occurred, Baudrillard outlines four successive phases of the image. This is a genealogy of the sign, tracing its terminal trajectory into oblivion. In phase 1, we operate under the baseline assumption that the sign and reality peacefully coexist. The image is a faithful copy. It reflects a profound reality. This is the classical myth of representation we began with, where language acts as a clear mirror. In phase 2, a dangerous paradigm shift occurs. The sign perverts and obscures a profound reality. It distorts the truth. This is the realm of ideology and propaganda, where the image is actively used to lie about the real world. But phase 3 brings a terrifying breakthrough. The sign plays at being an appearance. It actually masks the absence of a profound reality. We realize that the reality we thought we were hiding has already vanished. Finally, we reach the systemic deadlock of phase 4, the pure simulacrum. The sign bears no relation to any reality whatsoever. It is its own pure simulacrum. It masks its own truth, which is that there is nothing behind it. The image no longer reflects, distorts, or even covers up a real world. It exists entirely independently, generating its own gravity. We have officially entered the era of simulation. This maps the absolute completion of the radical French critique. We started with words reflecting truth. Then we discovered the meaning slides endlessly. Now, Baudrillard proves that the entire machinery of science has detached from the physical universe, leaving us floating in a synthetic void where reality has been systematically assassinated by its own representations. Having reached the phase of the pure simulacrum, we are now fully submerged in the era of simulacra and hyperreality. This is the total implosion of the real. Science self-replicates relentlessly without referring to any original physical source. The boundary between the fake and the authentic has been obliterated. To ground this abstract terror, Baudrillard analyzes the secret function of Disneyland. Disneyland is the ultimate hyperreal space. We are told it is an imaginary theme park, a place of pure fantasy, pirates, and cartoon mice. But Baudrillard argues that Disneyland exists solely as an ideological deterrence machine. Its childish, exaggerated illusion is a desperate cover up. It exists only to trick us into believing that the rest of America, outside its gates, is still real. By concentrating all the explicit fantasy inside a walled amusement park, society creates the comforting illusion that the banks, prisons, and the suburbs waiting in the parking lot are grounded in objective reality. But they are not. The adults walking around outside Disneyland are just as entangled in hyperreal simulations as the children hugging actors in costumes. The entire society is a theme park of floating signifiers. There is no authentic reality left to return to. The simulation has swallowed the map and the territory alike. The hyperreal is more real than real. It is a polished, seamless, digital hallucination that we accept as absolute truth. We are blindly navigating a landscape where the actual physical ground has been meticulously paved over by a flawless, self-generating simulation. This relentless hyperreality does not stop at geography or economics. It violently invades our very biology. We arrive at the body and sex as consumable signs, marking the terminal trajectory of the human form. The human form is entirely stripped of its natural identity and reconstructed as a hollow signifier. We are witnessing the murder of the biological body. The natural, unpredictable, organic body ceases to exist. It is completely replaced by a simulated model dictated entirely by the rigid codes of media, fashion, and advertising. This societal deadlock ushers in what Baudrillard terms the semiotic transsexual era. This does not refer to surgical gender reassignment in a medical sense. It is a profound realization that sex and gender are now permanently detached from biology. They have become free floating, artificial signs that can be consumed, swapped, and simulated at will. We have completely severed the link between physical biology and sexual identity. Accompanying this is the prosthetic aesthetic. The flesh is treated as raw, defective material. Through relentless fitness regimens, obsessive diet tracking, and cosmetic surgery, we force the physical body to conform to a hyperreal mathematical model of perfection. The body is no longer a natural organism. It is an optimized, engineered screen displaying cultural codes. The natural reality of the human form has been assassinated by the sign value of the perfect image. We meticulously carve away our authentic biology to better fit into the suffocating artificial architecture of a consumer society that demands flawless simulation. Baudrillard locates the geographical epicenter of this hyperreal condition in the United States. He diagnoses the American desert of meaning. For Baudrillard, America acts as the ultimate realization of the simulacrum. It operates entirely as a culture without depth. Unlike Europe, burdened by centuries of heavy historical narratives, America exists in a perpetual, hyper present state of cinematic simulation. There is no deep historical truth anchoring the society. Everything is immediate surface, billboard, and screen. It is a society built entirely on the accelerated circulation of science. The physical deserts of the American West serve as a perfect, brutal metaphor for this knowledge architecture. The desert is vast, flat, and visually spectacular, yet it is entirely empty of profound meaning. It is a brilliant, scorching void. This environment breeds a distinct psychological condition, a culture of fascinated indifference. The American subject does not actively resist the simulation. Instead, they consume the endless spectacle with blank, mesmerized apathy. We stare at the high definition screens, perfectly aware that the images are synthetic, yet we remain entirely paralyzed by their visual perfection. We are fascinated by the sheer scale of the illusion, but utterly indifferent to the loss of the authentic world. The simulacrum paradigm is fully operational here. The sign has successfully murdered reality, and the crime scene is a spectacular sun-drenched desert where the population is comfortably sedated by the endless hypnotic glow of artificial screens. The critical journey from classical truth to the death of the real reaches its bleak, undeniable horizon. We arrive at a final dialectical tension regarding this semiotic revolt, forcing a choice between emancipation and fatalistic despair. On one side, we have the joyful play championed by Derrida and Barthes. Their posture is one of liberation. Their primary action is deconstruction and infinite reading. For them, the death of the authoritative center frees marginalized voices. The endless sliding of signifiers is celebrated as a joyful dance of multiplicity. They view the collapse of fixed reality as a thrilling opportunity for intellectual freedom. On the opposite side stands Baudrillard and his nihilistic void. His posture is one of fatalism and melancholic despair. The action here is simulation, rampant consumption, and total implosion. The outcome is horrifying. The murder of reality leaves us permanently trapped in a synthetic prison. For Baudrillard, the sliding of science is not a dance. It is a viral infection hollowing out humanity. We are forced to confront the final question. Do we embrace the joyful play of the text, celebrating the freedom of endless interpretation? Or do we wander the hyperreal desert, desperately searching for the ruins of the real? As we collide this theory with our modern AI era, this tension becomes violently relevant. We are currently building generative models that mass produce synthetic science at unprecedented scale, entirely detached from physical truth. We are automating the production of simulacra, pushing Baudrillard's nightmare into overdrive, while simultaneously opening up Barthes' infinite text. The architecture of our digital future depends on whether we recognize the artificiality of the codes programming our reality. That concludes our exploration for today. Thank you for your time and see you next time.